I'm Thomas, 38 male. I teach high school chemistry in a quiet suburb outside Detroit. For 15 years, my life was a comfortable routine anchored by my wife Renata. Then 3 weeks ago, a single phone call from the Detroit Medical Center erased my entire world. This isn't just a story about grief. It's about discovering that the life I knew was a fortress built on secrets, and the woman I loved was killed trying to set me free. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. My wife Renata died at 38 in a car accident that made no sense. The police report was simple. She swerved to avoid a dog on Maple Street, a road she'd driven 1,000 times, and hit a telephone pole doing 50. The dog was fine, she wasn't. That was 3 weeks ago. In that time, I've had to sell everything just to bury her. Our house, a 3-bedroom colonial with plumbing I'd always promised to fix, went to the first cash buyer who walked in the door. My truck went to my Uncle Gus for half its value. I even pawned my grandfather's Rolex. It all added up to $43,000. That's the price tag for saying goodbye to the person you expected to grow old with. The funeral director, a man with a voice like velvet, kept pushing payment plans, but Renata deserved better than to be buried on credit. The day we put her in the ground was cold for October. I stood there watching her casket descend, haunted by our last conversation. We argued, not a real fight, just a bickering over paint samples for the guest room. Ocean mist versus harbor gray. I'd been tired and grumpy. They're the same color, Ren, just pick one. She kissed my cheek, ignoring my irritation. Maybe someone will use it soon, she said, and walked out the door. That was the last time I saw her. Our life had become predictable. We met at my cousin's wedding, where I'd spilled champagne all down her dress. She just laughed. That was Renata. We tried for kids, 2 miscarriages, 3 rounds of IVF, before a doctor gently told us it wasn't going to happen. She worked in real estate, I taught chemistry. We had Sunday dinners with my parents, Roland and Lorraine, and game nights with my brother Wyatt. It was a good life, a stable life, or so I thought. At the cemetery, I stood numbly as the priest spoke of eternal rest. My mother Lorraine stood beside me, a pillar of strength. My father Roland, a quiet, retired electrician, looked lost. My brother Wyatt and his wife Patricia were just behind me. But Renata's sister Bianca stood apart from everyone. She'd always thought Renata married beneath her. She wore dark sunglasses, though the sky was a blanket of gray. She waited until the very end. As the hydraulic system whirred, lowering my wife's casket into the earth, Bianca approached. She put her cold fingers on my arm, leaning in so close I could smell the faint scent of cigarettes on her black dress. She whispered 8 words that shattered the remaining fragments of my heart. She was leaving you anyway, she hissed, for her yoga instructor. My brother Wyatt saw my expression and asked what she'd said. I couldn't speak. My legs felt like they'd been disconnected from my body. The yoga instructor. His name was Nolan. I'd met him once, a 28-year-old with perfect posture and a man bun. Leaving you anyway. The words echoed in my head, drowning out the priest, the wind, and the sound of the first shovel of dirt hitting the casket. Bianca had delivered her blow with surgical precision, planting a seed of betrayal right in the middle of my grief. That night, alone in the house that was no longer mine, the grief curdled into a desperate, agonizing rage. I had to know if she was telling the truth. I tore through Renata's belongings like a madman. I needed proof. I needed to know if the last 15 years of my life had been a lie. I checked her emails, scanned her text messages, and went through every line of her credit card statements. There was nothing. No secret hotel rooms, no romantic dinners, no texts to Nolan. The last message on her phone was a simple heart emoji she'd sent me after I'd texted that I'd pick up milk. The search was fruitless, and I felt a small, hollow relief. Bianca was just being cruel. She was wrong. Then I opened her jewelry box. Beneath a tangle of silver necklaces, including the one I gave her for our 10th anniversary, my fingers brushed against something that didn't belong. It was a small, black plastic USB drive. A piece of masking tape was wrapped around it. On it, in Renata's careful, familiar handwriting, were 5 words that made my blood run cold. If I die before 40. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. I carried it to my laptop, which sat on the kitchen table where I'd been grading lab reports the morning she died. The house W. As dead silent except for the hum of the computer. I plugged in the drive. A single file appeared on the screen. It was a video dated just 3 weeks before her accident. It was the day she'd come home late saying a closing had run long. I clicked play and my dead wife's face filled the screen. This wasn't the Renata I knew. The woman on the screen was terrified. She was in our guest room, the one with the ugly beige walls we were supposed to paint. Her eyes kept darting off camera as if she expected someone to burst in. Thomas, she began, and her voice cracked on my name. If you're watching this, it means they killed me. Please just listen. She held up a thick manila folder. I was showing a house on Crestwood, she said, her voice trembling. The buyer was a no-show, but I found a box in the basement. It was full of old FBI documents, surveillance photos. Thomas, your father's name was all over them. Roland isn't who you think he is. My stomach dropped. Your Uncle Gus, she continued, his real name is Jep Torino. He testified against the Torino crime family in 1994. He's in witness protection. And your father, Roland, he wasn't an electrician. He was the U.S. Marshal assigned to protect him. She held up a grainy photo. It was my father, younger, wearing a U.S. Marshal's badge, standing with men in FBI windbreakers. Your whole family is in WITSEC, she whispered. You, Wyatt, your mother. None of you are who you think you are, but that's not the worst part. The reason we could never have children, it wasn't bad luck, it wasn't me. Tears were streaming down her face now. When you were 3 years old, your father authorized an experimental procedure. You were sterilized, Thomas. The federal prosecutor insisted the Torino bloodline end as part of the immunity deal. She was sobbing. Your birth name was Carlo Torino Jr. Your father was a mob boss. They gave you new lives, but this was the price. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. Renata wiped her eyes and leaned closer to the camera, her fear replaced by a fierce determination. I confronted Roland last month, she said. He told me I was putting everyone in danger. He said the Torinos never forget, and if they found out where you were, they'd kill all of you. He told me to burn the documents. Her voice was steady now. But you deserve to know who you are, Thomas. You deserve to know why we couldn't have a family. The proof is in his workshop. It's in a metal box marked circuit breakers. He doesn't know I found it. She looked right into the lens, and for a second she was my Renata again. I wasn't having an affair with Nolan. His brother is a federal attorney. I was trying to find a way to get us out of here safely, to tell you the truth. But I think Roland knows. I think he told someone. If they make it look like an accident, it wasn't. The video ended, black screen, silence. I sat there frozen, in the kitchen of a house I no longer owned, staring at the ghost of the woman I'd misunderstood. My grief was instantly overshadowed by a cold, clarifying rage. My entire life, my name, my parents, my infertility was a lie. And the man I called Dad had let my wife die to protect it. I grabbed my phone and dialed my brother. Wyatt, I said, my voice shaking, meet me at Dad's workshop right now, and don't tell anyone where you're going. The workshop smelled of sawdust and motor oil, just as it always had. When Wyatt arrived, his face creased with worry. I just shoved the USB drive into his hand. Watch this while I search, I ordered. I tore through the meticulously organized shelves, finding boxes for fuses, wire nuts, and voltage testers, but nothing marked circuit breakers. In the corner, Wyatt stood frozen, his face illuminated by his phone, growing paler with every word Renata spoke. This can't be real, he whispered. Keep looking, I yelled. Then I saw it, the old Craftsman tool chest in the corner, the one Roland said just held old manuals. The bottom drawer was locked. I grabbed a crowbar and forced it open. Inside, beneath a stack of yellowed manuals, was the box, and inside the box was the truth. There were photos of Roland in a U.S. Marshal's uniform. There were school IDs for me and Wyatt with different names, Carlo Jr. and Vincent Torino, and there was a medical record from 1994, bilateral vasectomy performed on Carlo Torino Jr., age 3, authorized by U.S. Marshal Roland Davies. Wyatt found his own file. We'd both been sterilized as toddlers. We burst into the house. Roland was in his recliner watching the news. Lorraine was on the couch knitting. They both looked up and I saw it in their eyes. They knew. You found the box, Roland said. It wasn't a question. You let them kill her, I roared, throwing the photos at his feet. She found out and you let them murder her. Sit down, son, he said. Don't call me son, my name is Carlo. No, he said firmly, Carlo T. Orino Jr. died in 1994, you're Thomas Davies. You stole our future, Wyatt choked out. Your biological father was a monster, Roland said, his voice quiet. He ordered judges executed. The prosecutor demanded the bloodline end. It was that or let the family find you. I raised you. I loved you. I kept you safe. And Renata, I whispered. His composure finally broke. She wouldn't stop digging. She was meeting with a lawyer. Word got back. I got a call. They knew our location. They said if I didn't handle the problem, they would, and they'd take all of us. You chose them over her. I chose you and Wyatt over her, he yelled, tears running down his face. I couldn't save everyone. The crash was professional. She didn't suffer. I've spent 30 years keeping you boys alive. You're alive. That's what matters. I looked at the man who had raised me, the man who had let my wife be executed. I'm going to the FBI, I said. He nodded slowly. I know you're my son. You'll survive. It's what I taught you. I drove to the FBI field office that night, carrying the box that had destroyed my life. An agent named Sarah Petrosky took my statement over 12 agonizing hours. The USB drive became evidence. They reopened Renata's case. Within 2 weeks, they found what the local police missed: brake fluid on the road that wasn't hers and traffic cam footage of a black SUV following her car. It was murder. Roland and Lorraine vanished 3 days later. Wyatt found their house empty, coffee still warm on the table. They were gone. Wyatt, terrified, chose to join them. He hugged me in a parking garage and told me not to call. The FBI offered me a new identity. I declined. I was done living a lie. I legally changed my name, but not to Carlo. I kept the name of the man who'd raised me, the only father I'd ever known, Thomas Davies. A month later, Bianca found me at Renata's grave. I'm sorry, she said, placing flowers next to mine. I was angry, I thought. I never imagined. She was trying to protect us, I said. Bianca told me the FBI had found a letter. Renata had been trying to get us new witness protection, identities we chose ourselves. She had plane tickets booked. She was going to surprise me with a fresh start. Now I teach chemistry in Portland, Oregon. My students call me Mr. D. They don't know my story. They just know I keep a photo of my late wife on my desk. I live alone. The walls of my apartment are painted ocean mist, the color Renata had wanted. Sometimes I wake up in the night certain the Torinos have found me, but the truth, as devastating as it was, set me free. Renata died for that truth, and living authentically, even in danger, is the only way I can honor her.